Marcus Chen stared at the Forbes notification on his phone, the headline making his chest swell with pride. Flowtech's revolutionary AI logistics platform hits $20 million valuation. At 28, he'd built something extraordinary from nothing, a sophisticated software system that optimized supply chains for major corporations, born in his cramped garage just 4 years ago. The immigrant dream his parents had chased for decades was finally real, manifested in lines of code and client contracts. "Dad's going to flip when he sees this," Marcus muttered, screenshotting the article. Henry Chen had always been skeptical of his son's computer games, preferring tangible work like the restaurant management that had sustained their family for 20 years. But Marcus had proven himself. Flowtech employed 53 people now, with offices in downtown San Francisco. More importantly, he'd been the family's financial backbone for 3 years running. When his father's diabetes complications required expensive treatments not covered by insurance, Marcus wrote the checks. When his sister Emma wanted to attend Stanford instead of community college, Marcus handled the tuition. When their cramped family home needed a new roof and foundation work, Marcus paid contractors without hesitation. He'd become their golden child, their success story whispered about proudly in the tight-knit Asian American community of Millbrae. At family gatherings, aunts and uncles would pat his shoulder saying, "Marcus brings such honor to the Chen name." The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd spent his childhood feeling inadequate compared to his father's expectations, never quite traditional enough, never quite respectful enough. Now his bank account had earned him the approval he'd craved for years. Marcus pulled into his parents' driveway, designer Tesla contrasting sharply with his father's aging Honda. Inside, the familiar sense of his mother's cooking mixed with the sound of Cantonese news broadcasts. Home still felt like stepping back in time, despite the modern appliances his money had purchased. "Marcus!" His mother Linda emerged from the kitchen, beaming. "Perfect timing. Your father just finished reading about Flowtech in the Chinese Daily. He's so proud." Henry Chen appeared from the living room, newspaper folded under his arm. At 58, he maintained the stern posture that had intimidated Marcus throughout childhood, though recent illness had softened his edges slightly. "20 million, Henry said, nodding approvingly. "The whole community's talking. Mrs. Wong asked if you might hire her nephew." Marcus grinned. "Actually, I have bigger news." He reached for Sarah's hand, pulling his fiancée forward. They'd been dating since college, and she'd been patient through years of family dinners where she remained politely excluded from Chinese conversations. "Dad, Mom, Sarah, and I are engaged." The words hung in the air like a held breath. His mother's smile faltered. His father's expression shifted from pride to something darker, a recognition that crossed his features like storm clouds. "Engaged," Henry repeated flatly. Sarah stepped forward, extending her hand to show the modest but elegant ring. "Mr. Chen, I know this might be surprising, but I love Marcus deeply, and I hope—" "No." Henry's voice cut through her words like a blade. "Absolutely not." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Dad, what do you mean, no? You think you can buy respect with your success, then throw away everything we've built?" Henry's voice rose, switching to rapid Cantonese aimed at his wife. "Did we sacrifice everything so our son could abandon his heritage for some white girl?" "Her name is Sarah," Marcus said firmly, "and I'm not abandoning anything." Henry's face flushed with anger that had been building for years. "You disgrace our family. You choose this outsider over your blood, over your culture." The room erupted. His mother wrung her hands, speaking in hushed, pleading Cantonese. Emma appeared from upstairs, drawn by the shouting. Sarah stood frozen, clearly understanding the rejection even without translation. Marcus had expected resistance, maybe negotiation. He hadn't expected rage. "Dad, calm down. Sarah is— Get out!" Henry's voice cracked with fury. "Leave this house, you lowlife. You think your money makes you better than family? You're dead to us." The words hit Marcus like physical blows. After everything, every check written, every bill paid, every sacrifice made to ensure his family's comfort and security, he was being called a lowlife and banished from his own home. His mother and sister remained silent, their eyes downcast. In that moment, Marcus realized something devastating. When forced to choose between his money and his father's approval, they were choosing his father. Marcus spent 3 sleepless nights at Sarah's apartment, replaying his father's words. Lowlife. The term echoed in his mind while he mechanically answered business calls and reviewed quarterly reports. Flowtech demanded his attention, but betrayal consumed his thoughts. On Thursday morning, his phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Yamamoto, their elderly neighbor. "Saw the news about your engagement. Your father tells everyone he guided your business success. Says he's the real brains behind Flowtech." Marcus stared at the message, his coffee growing cold. His father had been taking credit for his work? A pit formed in his stomach as he called his family's lawyer, David Kim, who'd handled their immigration paperwork years ago. "Marcus, I'm glad you called," David said carefully. "I need to discuss something sensitive. Your father contacted me last month about Flowtech's ownership structure." "What do you mean?" "He wanted to explore legal options for claiming partial ownership. He suggested that since he paid for your college education and you used the family home address for initial business registration, he might have grounds for a stake in the company." Marcus's grip tightened on the phone. "He what?" "I advised against it strongly. But Marcus, he seemed convinced he had legitimate claims. He even gathered your medical bills from when you lived at home, claiming they represented family investment in your venture." The room spun. His father hadn't just rejected him, he'd been plotting to steal his company. "There's more," David continued reluctantly. "He mentioned to my secretary that Emma would eventually inherit the family business." He was referring to Flowtech. Marcus hung up and drove straight to Millbrae, parking outside Chen's Garden, his uncle's restaurant where his father held court every Tuesday afternoon. Through the window, he watched Henry Chen gesturing animatedly to a table of middle-aged men. Marcus entered quietly, taking a corner booth where he could hear his father's conversation. "My son's success comes from our family values," Henry was saying in Mandarin. "I taught him everything about leadership, about seeing opportunities. These American kids with their computer skills, they need traditional wisdom to guide them." The men nodded respectfully. One asked, "Will Marcus expand the business locally?" "Of course. I'm helping him plan the next phase. The boy has talent, but experience, that comes from family." Marcus felt nauseated. His father was positioning himself as Flowtech's mastermind, while simultaneously calling him a disgrace at home. He left without confronting them, driving aimlessly through familiar streets. Every corner held memories of working double shifts at the community center to afford coding boot camp, of rejected job applications piling up while he perfected Flowtech's algorithms in his garage, of sleepless nights debugging software while his family slept peacefully in the home he was already helping to maintain. His phone buzzed with a voicemail from Emma. "Marcus, Mom's crying every night. Dad's pride is hurt, but he loves you. Can't you just find a nice Chinese girl instead? Sarah seems sweet, but family comes first. Family comes first." The words that had governed his entire life, had driven every financial sacrifice, every career decision shaped around supporting the people who now viewed his generosity as obligation rather than love. Marcus realized with crystalline clarity that his father had never seen him as a son, only as an asset to be controlled, credited, and eventually claimed. The real betrayal wasn't the racist rejection of Sarah. It was the discovery that his life's work had been systematically devalued and appropriated by the very people he'd lifted up. Marcus sat in his office at 3 a.m., a whiteboard covered in calculations and timelines stretched across the wall. Austin, Texas kept appearing in his research. Tech-friendly tax incentives, growing talent pool, lower operating costs, and most importantly, 2,000 miles from his father's suffocating presence. He'd spent a week analyzing the nuclear option, complete severance. Flowtech's lease expired in 6 months. His employees were brilliant but young, hungry for adventure. Austin offered everything San Francisco provided without the crushing overhead and family complications. By sunrise, Marcus had drafted a company-wide email. Team, I'm excited to announce Flowtech's expansion to Austin, Texas. This relocation represents our next evolution. Lower costs, incredible talent pipeline, and room to grow. We'll provide relocation packages for everyone who wants to join our Austin adventure. Those preferring to stay in California will receive generous severance and glowing references. The response was overwhelmingly positive. His core team, Sarah among them, now officially Flowtech's head of operations, was thrilled about starting fresh somewhere new. Marcus scheduled the announcement for maximum impact. He called the San Francisco Business Journal first. Flowtech is relocating to Austin and creating 200 new high-paying tech jobs. We've outgrown Silicon Valley's limitations. When the reporter asked about his family background, Marcus smiled coldly. Sometimes you have to leave familiar territory to realize your true potential. Not everyone understands vision. The story ran Thursday morning with the headline, Bay Area loses another tech darling to Texas migration. Phase 2 began immediately. Marcus called his bank and systematically canceled every automated payment to his family. His father's medical insurance premium, the mortgage payment on their house, Emma's Stanford tuition, the monthly allowance he'd been sending his mother. His phone exploded with panicked calls. He ignored them all. Instead, Marcus focused on strategic acquisitions. Through shell companies and intermediaries, he began purchasing businesses in Millbrae, the grocery store where his father bought newspapers to check for mentions of Flowtech, the dim sum restaurant where Henry held his informal business meetings, the insurance agency that handled the family's policies. Within 3 weeks, Marcus owned significant stakes in 6 local businesses. None traced back to him directly. His assistant knocked on his door Friday afternoon. Marcus, there's a reporter from the Austin American-Statesman here. Something about a feature story on new tech relocations? Perfect timing. Jennifer Walsh was everything Marcus had hoped for. Sharp, ambitious, looking for a compelling narrative about California's tech exodus. What drew you to Austin specifically? She asked, recording on her phone. Marcus leaned back in his desk chair, choosing his words carefully. Honestly, freedom from expectations that don't serve growth. Sometimes family and community can become anchors instead of support systems. Austin represents merit-based opportunity. That's an interesting perspective. Can you elaborate? I built Flowtech from nothing, but certain people expected to benefit from my success without contributing to it. Traditional. Thinking says you owe everything to those who raised you, but what happens when those same people try to limit your potential or claim credit for your work? Jennifer's eyes lit up. This was exactly the kind of personal angle that made business stories compelling. Are you speaking from experience? Let's just say Austin represents choosing your own path over inherited obligations. The article ran the following Tuesday with the headline, Tech Entrepreneur Chooses Merit Over Tradition in Austin Move. The subheadline read, Flowtech CEO credits success to breaking free from family expectations. Marcus's phone buzzed with a furious text from Emma. How could you say those things about Dad? Everyone's talking about the article. He screenshot the message and saved it without responding. Meanwhile, his Austin expansion accelerated beyond projections. Top-tier engineers from Google and Facebook were reaching out, intrigued by Flowtech's innovative culture and rapid growth trajectory. The company's valuation jumped to $50 million within 8 months as new contracts poured in from corporations impressed by their agile, forward-thinking approach. Marcus established the Independent Achievement Scholarship at UT Austin, specifically for entrepreneurs who overcame family adversity to pursue innovative ventures. The press release mentioned his own journey from traditional expectations to technological breakthrough. Austin's tech community embraced him as a visionary leader. He appeared on panels about breaking generational patterns in business and choosing innovation over tradition. Local media celebrated him as exactly the kind of forward-thinking entrepreneur Texas wanted to attract. 3 months into the Austin expansion, Marcus made his boldest move yet. He purchased billboard space along Highway 101, visible to anyone driving through Millbrae. The simple message read, Flowtech, built on merit, not heritage. Now thriving in Austin, Texas. Below the text was Flowtech's new logo and the company's impressive growth statistics. Marcus drove past the billboard the day it went live, watching his father's neighbors slow their cars to read the message. His phone immediately began ringing with calls from family members, but he'd already blocked all their numbers. The war had officially begun. The first crack in Marcus's resolve came at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday, when his mother's number appeared on his blocked call list 17 times. He finally answered. Linda Chen's voice was barely above a whisper. Marcus, please. Your father is in the hospital again. The stress, the bills. His blood sugar spiked dangerously high. Marcus stared at the Austin skyline through his penthouse windows. And the medical bills are piling up. We can't afford the specialist treatments anymore. The insurance company is asking questions about the premium payments. You should have thought about that before calling me a lowlife. That was your father speaking from fear, not... Fear of what, Mom? That I might actually be happy? Linda's voice cracked. He's suffering, Marcus. You're destroying our family over pride. Marcus's laugh was bitter. I learned from the best. He hung up and immediately received a text from Emma. I had to drop out of Stanford. Thanks for destroying my future because Dad hurt your feelings. I hope your revenge was worth it. The message stung more than Marcus expected. Emma hadn't chosen sides in the original confrontation, but his nuclear approach had made her collateral damage. He pushed the guilt aside. This was war, and casualties were inevitable. 2 days later, his assistant forwarded an email that made his blood boil. Henry Chen had contacted Flowtech's biggest client, Meridian Logistics, with an official complaint. Dear Mr. Patterson, the email read, I feel obligated to inform you about concerning business practices involving Flowtech systems. My son, Marcus Chen, has engaged in unethical financial manipulation and has demonstrated unstable behavior that may affect service reliability. As someone with intimate knowledge of the company's operations, I wanted to ensure your organization is aware of these risks. Marcus immediately called his lawyer. This is textbook defamation, Janet Rodriguez confirmed. He's making specific claims about business practices without evidence. We can shut this down fast. Do it, and send copies of the cease and desist to every business in Millbrae. I want everyone to see what kind of man Henry Chen really is. The legal action backfired spectacularly for his father. When the story leaked to the local Chinese American Business Association, the community split into factions. Traditional families supported Henry's right to discipline his son, but successful entrepreneurs were horrified by his attempt to sabotage Marcus's business. Mrs. Wong, whose nephew Marcus had actually hired at Flowtech, publicly criticized Henry at the association meeting. This man tried to destroy his own son's company out of spite. What kind of father does that? The community gossip network, which had once amplified Henry's boasts about guiding Marcus's success, now buzzed with whispers about his desperate attempts to reclaim relevance. Members who had praised the Chen family's success story now felt manipulated and embarrassed. Dr. Liu, a prominent community leader, confronted Henry directly at the Chinese Cultural Center. "You lied to us about your role in Flowtech. Now you're trying to destroy what your son built? This brings shame on all of us." Marcus's competitors, meanwhile, tried to exploit the family drama. TechFlow Solutions reached out to Flowtech's clients, suggesting that family instability might affect service quality. Logicorp's CEO made subtle remarks at industry conferences about companies run by emotionally compromised leadership. But Marcus's reputation in Austin remained untouchable. His clients there saw him as a focused visionary who'd escaped toxic family dynamics to build something extraordinary. The attempted sabotage only reinforced the narrative of a successful entrepreneur overcoming traditional limitations. Sarah found Marcus in his office late one evening, staring at his laptop screen showing Millbray's local news website. "Your father gave an interview," she said gently. Marcus clicked the link. Henry Chen sat in their family living room, looking older and more fragile than Marcus remembered. The headline read, "Local Father Speaks Out About Son's Betrayal." "I raised him with traditional values," Henry said to the camera. "Respect for family, for culture. But success changed him. He abandoned everything we taught him for money and status." The interviewer asked about the business sabotage allegations. Henry's composure cracked. "I was protecting our community from someone who lost his way. Sometimes a father must take difficult actions." Marcus closed the laptop. His father's desperation was showing, but so was his continued refusal to acknowledge any wrongdoing. The war was far from over. Marcus was reviewing quarterly projections when his assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Sir, there's a Henry Chen in the lobby. He says he's your father and refuses to leave without seeing you." Marcus's pen stopped mid-signature. After 18 months of silence, his father had come to him. "Send him up." Marcus straightened his tie and moved to the window overlooking Austin's skyline. Flowtech's headquarters occupied 3 floors of the downtown tower, employing over 200 people. The view reminded him how far he'd traveled from his father's disappointment. The elevator chimed and footsteps echoed across the marble floor. Henry Chen appeared in the doorway, but this wasn't the stern patriarch Marcus remembered. His father had aged dramatically, thinner, grayer, wearing an ill-fitting suit that suggested financial strain. The proud posture had collapsed into something approaching desperation. "Impressive office," Henry said quietly, taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows and modern furniture. "What do you want, Dad?" Henry stepped forward, his hands clasped behind his back, in the formal stance Marcus knew meant serious conversation. "I want my son back." "Your son? The lowlife who disgraced the family?" Henry flinched. "I was angry, hurt. You were choosing an outsider over everything we built." "Everything you built?" Marcus's voice sharpened. "I built this company in a garage while you told everyone in Millbray that you were the mastermind. I supported our family for 3 years while you planned to steal my business." "I never intended to steal anything. I just wanted to ensure family interests were protected." Marcus laughed bitterly. "Protected? You tried to claim ownership of my work, then sabotaged my clients when that failed." Henry's composure began cracking. I raised you. I sacrificed everything to give you opportunities in this country. You owe me everything. I owe you nothing. The words hung between them like a blade. Henry stepped closer, his voice rising with desperation. You destroyed our family. Your mother cries every night. Emma had to leave school. I'm drowning in medical bills because my ungrateful son decided to punish us for protecting our culture. You weren't protecting culture. You were protecting your ego. The office door opened and Sarah entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. She stopped, recognizing the tension immediately. Sarah, Henry said, his voice softening with forced politeness. I didn't know you were here. We work together now, Sarah replied carefully. I'm Flowtech's head of operations. Henry's expression shifted as the implications registered. You're still together. Marcus moved to Sarah's side. We're married, Dad. Eloped 6 months ago. The news hit Henry like physical blow. His face paled and he gripped the back of a chair for support. Married, he repeated numbly. Yes, without family drama or traditional expectations, it was perfect. Henry's breathing became labored. You didn't even tell us. Why would I? You made it clear I was dead to you. The confrontation was interrupted by another voice from the doorway. Marcus! Emma stood at the entrance, visibly pregnant and looking exhausted. Marcus hadn't seen his sister in over a year. Emma, what are you doing here? I drove Dad. He said he was coming to make peace. She looked around the opulent office with mixture of awe and resentment. This is what you chose over us? This is what I built despite you. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I'm having a baby, Marcus. A baby I can't afford to raise properly because you decided to destroy our family over a stupid fight. Marcus felt the first crack in his armor. Emma, I didn't... You cut us off completely. No warning, no chance to fix things. Just pure vindictiveness. Henry straightened suddenly, pointing an accusatory finger at Marcus. You want to know the truth? I was scared. Scared that my brilliant son was abandoning everything we worked for, everything that made us who we are. What made you who you are? Marcus shot back. Taking credit for other people's work? Lying to the community? Trying to steal from your own son? I was trying to protect our legacy. Our legacy. There is no our anything. I built this alone while you planned to take it away. Henry's face flushed red, his voice reaching a breaking point. I gave you everything, every value, every lesson, every opportunity that led to this success. You gave me nothing but criticism and conditional love. Henry clutched his chest suddenly, his breathing becoming rapid and shallow. I can't. He collapsed into the chair, his face gray with pain. Dad! Emma rushed to his side while Sarah immediately called 911. Marcus stood frozen, watching his father struggle to breathe. 18 months of calculated revenge had led to this moment. His father, broken and gasping, finally understanding what he'd lost. But as Marcus looked at Henry's terrified eyes, he realized his victory felt completely hollow. The hospital waiting room felt familiar in the worst way. Marcus sat beside Emma while Sarah handled insurance paperwork, a bitter irony since he'd canceled his father's premium coverage months ago. The heart attack was mild, but serious enough to require overnight observation. Dr. Rodriguez emerged at midnight with cautiously optimistic news. He'll recover, but stress was definitely a contributing factor. His blood pressure has been dangerously elevated for months. Emma looked at Marcus with exhausted accusation. Months of stress? Wonder why? Marcus stared at the sterile floor tiles. 18 months of calculated revenge had led to this moment. His father in a hospital bed, his family fractured beyond recognition, and a hollow victory that tasted like ash. When Henry woke the next morning, his first words were barely whispered. "I'm sorry." Marcus approached the bedside cautiously. His father looked fragile against the white sheets, IV tubes making him seem smaller somehow. "I was wrong," Henry continued, his voice hoarse. "About Sarah, about your choices, about trying to control your success. I let fear and pride destroy what mattered most." Marcus felt tears he'd suppressed for months finally surface. "Dad, No, let me finish. I was threatened by your success because it made me feel inadequate. Instead of celebrating your achievements, I tried to claim them. Instead of trusting your judgment, I demanded submission." Henry's eyes met his son's. "You built something extraordinary, and I almost destroyed it out of jealousy." The apology Marcus had craved for 18 months finally came, but it felt more complicated than he'd imagined. "I went too far with the revenge," Marcus admitted. "Cutting off Emma's education, leaving you drowning in medical bills, that was cruel." "You learned cruelty from me," Henry said quietly. Over the following weeks, they negotiated a careful reconciliation. Marcus resumed paying for medical emergencies only, with strict boundaries about family interference in his business decisions. Emma received a college fund for her baby, but through an independent trust that couldn't be manipulated. Linda Chen slowly rebuilt her relationship with Marcus and Sarah, acknowledging her silent complicity in Henry's initial rejection. She was the first family member to visit their Austin home, marveling at the life they'd built together. The community dynamics in Millbrae shifted permanently. Henry's reputation never fully recovered from the public revelation of his attempted business sabotage, but some neighbors appreciated his eventual public apology. The Asian American Business Association split between traditional and progressive factions, with Marcus becoming an unexpected symbol for younger entrepreneurs facing family pressure. Flowtech thrived beyond Marcus's wildest projections. The company went public 2 years later, reaching a valuation of $200 million. Marcus established the Chen Foundation, supporting immigrants who chose individual paths over family expectations, a living monument to the lesson that love shouldn't require sacrifice of personal truth. Sarah and Marcus welcomed their son, David, 18 months after the hospital confrontation. When they sent Henry a photo, he requested permission to visit Austin. The meeting was stilted but genuine. Henry held his grandson carefully, speaking softly in Mandarin about family and dreams. But when David cried, Henry handed him back without the possessive claims that had poisoned previous relationships. "He's your son," Henry said simply. "You'll raise him your way." Marcus realized his father had finally learned the lesson that nearly destroyed them both. Love meant letting go. The relationship remained cordial but distant. Sunday phone calls replaced daily involvement. Holiday visits were brief and structured. Marcus had won his independence, but the cost included the comfortable intimacy he'd once craved from family. On quiet evenings in Austin, watching Sarah rock their son to sleep, Marcus reflected on the price of revenge. He'd proven his point decisively, but the victory had taught him that destroying others never healed personal wounds. Building something beautiful remained the only revenge worth pursuing.